The Occoquan Radio Podcast is a private production and is not affiliated with the town of Occoquan. Opinions expressed on the podcast are solely those of its host and guests. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 46 of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Ernie Porta, bringing you 10 to 15 minutes of irregular, unscheduled updates on things Occoquan and beyond. I'm sorry that I've been off the air now for several months. That wasn't intentional. Sometimes things just get in the way. But hopefully we're back now on a regular schedule. In any event, we have a lot to catch up on. This episode will review some past events, touch on some council business, and mention some new businesses in town. Then we'll talk about a new exhibit at the Millhouse Museum in our Occoquan History segment, address some snow confusion in our Rumor Mill Shredder entry, and close with upcoming activities in town. Make sure you don't miss an episode by searching for us on the podcasting app of your choice and hitting the subscribe button. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. Our last episode was just before Thanksgiving, and I certainly hope everyone enjoyed the holidays. I especially hope that those of you who are local were able to attend some of the events in town, from our annual tree lighting, Santa's arrival by boat, our two-day artisan market, and the host of other activities put on by the town and our business community. We got great feedback from everyone, and I especially want to thank our staff for all the work they put in. Every time I thank our wonderful events director, Tammy Hassett, and her assistant, Jessica Bastone, they immediately note that it's a team effort and remark on the contributions of other staff and our police, as well as the many community volunteers who make it possible. So thank you all. Staff are already working on even greater things for this upcoming holiday season. I also want to give special props to the folks at Doracco's restaurant. I don't know if you noticed, but I certainly did, that during the holidays, Doracco's consistently played holiday music that you could pleasantly hear as you walked by on the sidewalk. It was a consistent reminder of the Christmas time spirit that seems to reside in small towns like Occoquan during those early weeks of winter. Thank you for doing that, Doracco's. Snow, of course, has been an issue for us the past few weeks. Thank you to all of you who exhibited patience as we tried working through all of this, particularly some road plowing issues during the first storm. I also want to make sure everyone is aware that we lost some longtime residents over the past few months. Both Don O's and Ann Sawyer have passed, and I know you all join me in wishing their families comfort and peace. The Town Council is working on a number of things, the most prominent of which at the moment is the annual review and update of our council's strategic framework and the development of a budget for the coming fiscal year, which begins July 1. All the council meetings over the next few months will include discussions and presentations on this subject, and I encourage you to attend or check out preliminary budget information on the town website if this is a subject that interests you. There will be ample opportunity for public comment at meetings and during more formal public hearings. Last, I want to welcome some new businesses in town. Aspire Counseling opened on the corner of Washington and Commerce Streets, and although Third Base Pizza closed, a new pizza shop, Riverside Pizza Factory, has opened at the rear of 313 Mill Street, where Marin's Wood Turning used to be, and serves both New York and Detroit-style pizza. And where Third Base was, Artisan Butchers has opened, a real live butcher shop in Occoquan. We appreciate all of these businesses choosing to locate in Occoquan and hope you will consider patronizing them. In this episode's history segment, I'd like to talk about the historic post office display at the Occoquan Historical Society's Millhouse Museum. Located at 413 Mill Street, the museum was closed for the month of January to undergo some renovations, collection inventory, and cleaning. Return visitors to a now reopened museum will notice a number of changes, perhaps the most striking of which is the restored and remounted historic post office window and sign. Previously tucked away behind some display cases and storage items and blocking an exterior window, the post office display now sits unencumbered in full view of the public. Staff have cleaned the item, repaired the glass, and mounted it in an attractive and accessible fashion, with mail slots that include some historic postcards and other postal items from Occoquan's past. Occoquan's first postmaster was Bernard Gilpin, who was appointed on October 1, 1808, followed by a well-known Occoquan resident and businessman, Nathaniel Ellicott, on September 1, 1810. Historically, post offices in the United States used to switch locations frequently. A new postmaster, for example, once appointed, might move the town's post office from a town hotel to a general store that they operated. This was the case for much of Occoquan's history, with the site of the town post office moving among various private homes and businesses. Our current post office at 202 Mill Street opened in 1969. The post office window box on display in the Millhouse Museum was donated by Bine Cross and comes from the immediate predecessor to our current post office. This earlier post office was located at 304 Mill Street, where Potomac Chocolate is now, and was allegedly built by John Leary sometime in the late 1920s or early 1930s as the town's first post office building. It stood between what was once Leary's Mercantile Store at 302 Mill Street, which later was Leary Lumber Company, Blackbeard's Seafood Restaurant, the Golden Goose, Urban Posh, and now Curate. And on the other side, at 306 Mill Street, was Wayland's Grocery, later Jennings Drug Store, and now Jerry's Occoquan Jewelers. Although brought to us from that first post office building, our window box in the Millhouse Museum apparently predates even that structure. Isabel Beach was named postmistress in 1904, followed by Lee Beach in 1914, and our window box was apparently used for the post office at the Beach family home at 206 Commerce Street. Charles Pierce took over as postmaster in 1920 and operated the post office out of 307 Mill Street and later out of Slack's funeral home at 301 Union Street. When John Leary built the post office where Potomac Chocolate is today, Pierce took our post office window box with him to the new site. If you get a chance, stop by the Occoquan Historical Society's Millhouse Museum to see some of Occoquan's history newly displayed. And as always, I encourage everyone who is interested in learning more about Occoquan history to visit Occoquan's Millhouse Museum and consider joining the Occoquan Historical Society. You can find more information at www.occoquanhistoricalsociety.org. That's the intro sound for our Rumor Mill Shredder segment. This is where we pay homage to the fact that while for much of its history Occoquan was a prosperous mill town, the only mill in operation today is the rumor mill. Here we take on urban legends, myths, rumors, or other similar topics that need straightening out. I'm going to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about our snow removal difficulties during our first winter storm. As most of you know, the main roads are VDOT owned and VDOT plowed them on a relatively consistent schedule. The alleys and a few non-HOA roads, however, are handled by a town contractor, who frankly found themselves overwhelmed with their various clients and the amount of snow, and was essentially unable to do most of our alleys and roads in a timely fashion. So, in addition to staff and volunteers who shoveled out driveways, entrances, and some sidewalks, our own town staff put a plow in our truck and did the best they could, and we hired a local business owner, many of you know Josh, and paid him to use his bobcats to clear out a number of areas as best as possible. Snow removal is an expensive proposition, and we often face a conundrum after a large snow of having nowhere to put the snow. Trucking out snow is exorbitantly expensive. And so, once again, we appreciate how the vast majority of folks in town were patient and helped out where they could. Now for upcoming events. There frankly are not a lot of major events coming up this week, but I do encourage you to check out the Visit Occoquan site for things coming up in early March. These include some featured artists at some of our galleries, a wine event at DeRocco's, and another swords, brooms, and magical beast events. Also, VFW Post 7916's Military Tribute Banner program in collaboration with the town kicks off in March. So there is plenty coming up soon. As always, for information on some of these and other events in Occoquan, go to visitoccoquanva.com/events. Again, that's visitoccoquanva.com/events. That brings us to the end of this episode of the Occoquan Radio Podcast. Make sure you don't miss an episode by searching for us on the podcasting app of your choice and hitting the subscribe button. I'm your host, Ernie Porta. Thank you for listening.